Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Hopefully you can all hear us out there. So welcome. Can you give us a quick hands up if you can hear us and indeed see us? Thank you very much. Hands going up all over. Good stuff, good stuff. People got in already. So I'm sat here with my custard creams, not for sharing though. Biscuit jokes have got in already. Hello, Gavin. Good evening to you.
Excellent.
So, hello, my name's Ritchie and I'm here with the other half of Property CEO, Mr. Ian Child.
Hello, Ian.
It's great to have you here. Great to have you on board. So, what are support sessions? So, some of you were here on Saturday, and it's good to have you back. I can see some of the familiar names. Some of you are new this evening. What is this about? Well, we're going to put together some regular 45-minute sessions throughout each week, just to try and inject a little bit of positive energy back into the current situation. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Just give you a bit of a lift, give you a bit of an upbeat, along with some useful information, isn't it, Ian?
Absolutely. Now, for those of you who might not be that familiar with Property CEO, it might be worth just giving you a very brief introduction. Our day job here is training people how to become property developers. And Ritchie and I, it's fair to say, got a fair few miles on the clock when it comes to both property and business. And this may shock some of you. Unbelievably, we're not in the first flashes of youth. And I know that appearances can be quite deceptive, particularly on the camera and so on. But it's fair to say we've kind of lived and worked through quite a number of recessions. Ritchie, I think you're on your 28th now, so quite experienced.
Yeah.
So whilst the whole kind of pandemic thing is a bit new for everybody, living through a recession most definitely isn't. And what we've learned over kind of all those years is that the people that fare the best when the seas get choppy, you know, they're not the ones who are watching the storm. The people that end up being successful are the ones doing something about their businesses and their livelihoods right now.
So, you know, all this anxiety, all this sort of doom and gloom stuff out there, we're going to get away from that. This is pure class half full stuff. We can't knock the stuff out there. We've all got our own problems going on in our lives. So, you know, we appreciate that. But here, we're not belittling that. We're just going to be half full for you this evening. So hopefully this is going to be useful for things that other questions that you've got. Any questions that you've got, we're happy to answer as we go through. So you can put them into the chat box. We have an early question in from Simon. Which one is Ant and which one is Deck?
I don't know. How do you tell? It's the way we're kind of sat. So do we need to swap over?
I don't know. I don't think that's entirely possible for us to do that. So, okay, you can be Deck, I'll be Ant. I don't know if that makes any difference.
Is that something to do with the size of your forehead? Because I'd noticed actually yours is. No, we won't go there.
I don't think we should. I don't think we should. So, you know, any questions you've got, please put them in the chat box, put them in the question box as we go. We're happy to pick them up. We've got a few questions. We have one hanging over from Saturday, which we'll try and answer. And also we're going to talk about, as we said we would, some retail to residential and some ideas around that, which could be a really good strategy to look at going forward, although I hate using the word strategy, but I just have. And Ian's going to give us a bit of a top 10 tonight. I think we might have that as a bit of a regular theme. So Ian's going to give us a top 10 of his takeout restaurants, I suspect, or something like that. So anyway, so welcome. A lot of people on board. I can see, yeah, Stephen, Simon, Shirley, Sam, good evening to you. There's a whole load of names. Dan, good evening, Dan. Welcome. Clive, we haven't spoken for some time. Hello, Clive. Bob, good evening. Spoke to you a couple of hours ago, so hello there. Alan's on. Yeah, we've got a lot of familiar faces and some new. So welcome to all the new people that are on here that perhaps we haven't come across. Hi, guys, says Alan. Hello to you. So we've got a couple of questions coming in as well. So we'll try and answer them. Saint and Greavsie seems a bit more of a fit to me.
Oh, harsh.
Unnecessary.
That is unnecessary.
That's from Bob.
Oh, right. Well, at least unnecessary, but not unexpected.
No, absolutely. Okay. So we had a question on Saturday, which we didn't get round to answering, and he's not on at the moment. David's not on. So what I might do is I might come back to that, because David, I think, is signed up, and I'd like him to hear the answer to his question that we missed on Saturday. So I'm going to come back to that, and perhaps we kick off. Shall we have a go at your top 10, Ian? You've got a top 10 list for us today?
I have got a top 10 today. Are you going to do the kind of countdown music?
I don't have any countdown music. I could sing, but I'm not entirely sure that people want that. Clive's put his hand up and waved hello, Clive.
I think that was I think that was a signal not to sing.
Oh,
Thanks,
maybe
Clive.
so. Maybe so. Hello, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Hello, good evening. Go on,
So
top 10.
Top 10. What I thought I'd do tonight is just have a top 10 about what you need to do to protect your financial situation. So obviously, at the moment, very difficult times for obviously business owners and employees alike. Everybody's suffering. And I think the really important word here is livelihood. You know, we're not just trying to see about how we can be more successful tomorrow. That's part of it. It's also about what we can do today to get ourselves on a better financial footing. When, of course, many people have taken a very big hit, and the income and their kind of future income looks pretty uncertain. So I thought that I'd give you 10 things today that might help people get on top of their financial situation today. And number one out the blocks is about knowing your numbers. So when the going gets a bit tough, you do need to project your cash flow. And it's the same in your business life as it is in your personal life. When it comes to a crisis, you need to make sure that you've got enough cash coming in to deal with both the short term and the longer term scenarios. Now, obviously, large organizations, they all have these disaster recovery plans. And basically, you need one yourself. You need to kind of work out what a disaster scenario looks like for you. So just imagine this worst case scenario where there's no income coming in and the cash that you relied on as income has dried up. What exactly are you going to do? How long could you survive before you actually need to have income coming in again? And actually, what would you do? Where could you get some income from? If it involves creating a business enterprise, so you're actually going to be doing some work, what might that look like? Is there something that you could do now to kind of just investigate what that might be? And actually, if you found something that worked, is that something that you could actually implement now anyway, even though you don't need it, if it's a viable second income stream? I think the other thing, of course, is that if you're able to earn money, that's great. But also, if you need to be able to borrow money to stem a kind of short-term cash flow, then how are you able to do that? What are the sources? Whether that's friends and family, whether that's the bank, building society, and so on. It's basically a case of making sure that you're prepared. So you don't need to set anything up. It's really just asking yourself those questions so that you're in a great place should you need to, and the emergency arises, you know exactly what it is that you're going to do. Second on my list was linked to that, I guess, which is finding out what financial help is actually available to you. There's been lots of stuff in the news, mortgage, holidays, deferred loan payments, deferred kind of utility bill payments, and of course, all the work the government's done in terms of subsidies, grants, the various initiatives that they've got in place to kind of alleviate a lot of the pain that's been caused by the coronavirus. So it's really about making sure that you know what it is you're entitled to. And in that respect, the internet, in particular the government websites, and your accountant are really your friends. So that's the best place to go to find out exactly what it is that you might be entitled to, so that you at least know what options you have. One word of warning though, when you go down that route, just make sure that you take some advice on whether implementing any of these things, particularly things like mortgage, holidays, and so on, that could potentially affect your credit rating. So you just need to make sure that you know whether it does or not before you press the button on it. But certainly,
Ian, just to pick up, I mean, Ritesh has asked that question this evening. Today, mortgages are on lockdown. How can we benefit from the announcement? Taking on board your comment there in your top 10 about you just got to make sure that doesn't cause you a problem. Do you see how we could take any benefits from that? I'm not entirely sure we can as developers, but in terms of individuals taking advantage of that, any thoughts to add to Ritesh's question?
I'll be honest, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I think one of the things that I would urge everybody to do in this situation is to do some a little bit more digging around in the detail when it comes to the mortgage situation. One of the things I've noticed is that there can be some news that comes out which is quite broad, and then we go into the detail and we find out that not only is it kind of different, it's not necessarily a blanket thing. So I think I've got a plan to circle back on mortgages, to be honest, in one of our next sessions when I go a little bit more on some of the financial side. So I think we'll be doing some digging in the interim and coming up with some ideas on how we can mitigate that.
Sorry, I put you off then, and get back on your list. Come on, hurry up.
Well, what number did I get to? I think I got to
9.
Wishful thinking. No, number 3, sorry, dealing with debt. So here's a question that actually came up last time, which is what if you can't pay your bills? Now, if money is a challenge, there's only one kind of key word that you need to remember, and that's communication. You should never, ever, ever put your head in the sand if you owe people money and you can't pay them. It doesn't matter who it is. It invariably is good to talk whoever you owe money to. And there may be quite a lot of options, particularly at the moment when it comes to deferring utility bills or loan repayments. Yeah, we'll take a rain check on the mortgage repayment side of things, but also tie it in with your cash flow projections. One other thing to bear in mind here is that you still probably want to have a cash flow buffer. So even though you might have just enough to pay all your bills, make sure that you've still got enough of a kind of rainy day buffer to be able to deal with any bumps in the road that come along. But a lot of organizations out there have got open doors at the moment with people. Obviously, they're having to deal with a lot of activity in this area, a lot of people in difficult circumstances at the moment. So rest assured, you won't be the only one. There will normally be quite a streamlined process for being able to get some information on things relating to dealing with debt. Number 4 was about consolidating your spending. So this is just really recognizing what you spend your money on, you know, being aware of the money that goes out. One of the exercises that's great to do is to actually dig out your last 6 months bank statements and your credit card statements. Sounds absolutely horrific, but actually you'd be amazed at what's actually on there. You see these things and you just kind of ignore them day to day, but actually when you go back and look at them, there's quite often quite a few things that have crept in there that perhaps you don't need anymore, perhaps you didn't realize that they were there, kind of renewal type payments, and you can take steps to get rid of them. I think the other one that's linked to that, which has certainly caught me out before, is our good friends at PayPal. You can quite often, I think with PayPal and also with things like the App Store, if you set up a payment, you buy, let's just say some software, or you buy an app, or you buy something, you put it on PayPal, or you get it from the App Store, and then what actually happens is in the small print, it's set up to auto renew. So 12 months later, you get another payment taken for the full amount. And actually that can put you in a bit of a tricky situation if you then try and claw it back, because of course you've completely forgotten all about it, and in many cases perhaps you didn't actually realize. So what I do quite regularly is just to log on to PayPal, and if you go into the settings and the payments, and under there you'll see pre-approved payments. If you just manage that, you can see all of the payments that have been set up on your account to automatically go out. In my experience, you don't then tend to get advance warning. Maybe that's because my settings are off, but I think generally it just goes out. So there you can kind of just ditch the bad guys, anybody that you don't need, anybody that you don't want to pay, anything that you don't want to renew. So just go in there and get rid of it. Number 6 is about, I guess, just being frugal and being risk aware. Just because the toilet rolls are now back on the shelves doesn't mean that going shopping is a great idea. In fact, we kind of want to just stay at home, so doing less shopping, both in-store and online, is probably the way to go. One of the ways, of course, of doing that is really to kind of just make the most of what we got. We're generally, as a nation, we're not that great at not being wasteful. In these times, we've seen quite a lot of stuff on the TV about how you're able to kind of make the most of the stuff that you have, particularly when it comes to stuff like food. And there's been those sort of horrendous images of people throwing away stockpiled food in the news yesterday. But actually, there's quite a lot of stuff on there that teaches you how to make the most of what you got. So those are certainly things that can actually make quite a saving. Point number 7 for me was about getting your homeworking sorted. So we're all in this homeworking kind of vibe now, where this is what we're doing. And it can be challenging, as I said on the last episode, not to kind of get the home and the work balance sorted properly. What you want to do is to be as productive as possible. Now, I'm going to kind of cover the perfect homeworking setup in a later session, but the basics for me are pretty simple. You want a separate space where you work. So you want to keep the work work is work, home is home, and you don't mix the two. Make sure you got 2 screens set up. Make sure that you got decent video, and in particular decent audio. Sometimes the mics that are on some of the older laptops aren't that great, so if you can invest in one that you can you plug in separately, or a headset or whatever, that can work for you. Learn obviously how to use all of the tools like Zoom and Skype and the webinar software like this stuff, and just get familiar with it. Also, if you're using it quite a lot for meetings, I certainly urge you to do that, because let's be honest, these are probably the only meetings you're going to be having anytime soon. Then just make sure that your kind of setup looks good. So you're not sitting in the dark. The backdrop is pretty neutral, and you're not just looking at your washing line hanging out or something. And just sort of make sure that you're giving a neutral, or at least a professional impression. I think the other thing to do is to kind of go to work every day. Just have a routine. Make sure that you're doing it day in, day out, as you would have been before all of this came about. So it is not absolutely essential that you wear a suit and tie if you're wearing a suit and tie was your thing before this, but it just helps to be able to get into that mindset of when work is work and when home is home, and that way you just get more productive and yeah, not sat glued to the news all day or chatting with friends and family. If we think about stuff that's a bit more proactive in terms of what we can do in terms of generating income, there's a couple of things that I think are fairly obvious. One is about creating a separate income stream. Now, there's been lots of talk about this, and of course, it makes perfect sense to have separate streams of income so you don't have all your eggs in one basket. Of course, there's lots of people that are now thinking that setting up an online business, selling online and so on and so forth is kind of the way to go. Well, that's certainly the most obvious option, I guess, but it's also one of the most difficult, one of the most competitive, and guess what? It hasn't got any less competitive in the last 2 weeks. So that's certainly an option, but you may want to think of some of the alternatives. Things like, we've got this gig economy where people are outsourcing their skills and they're using portals like fiverr.com, like People Per Hour, and so on, to be able to sell their services effectively for their professional services or things that they're good at that other people are prepared to buy in. Is it possible for you to learn a skill or something that a process that would be able to give you an income stream going forward? Or could you actually create a business? And I've seen this done really, really effectively, where people have simply acted, funny enough, like the CEO, and they've actually just appointed outsourcers, generally around the world, quite often in economies that are cheaper to run than with the others are cheaper than in the UK. And they've set up businesses where they simply become, if you like, the shop window, and then a lot of the work gets done in other countries, and they've created the business with outsourcers sitting kind of at the end of these spokes delivering the work. So again, something that you could investigate. I think one of the things that I've come across before, kind of linked to that, which I thought was quite neat, was people that have built automated solutions. I remember once I had a need to come up with some social media posts that were kind of just images with quotes on. And let's be honest, not rocket science to actually create them yourself, but just take a lot of time. Some guy had actually basically just written some software, or got somebody else, I think, to write some software that just simply did it automatically. Put your logo on, load of pictures, load of quotes, and then it was massively less labor intensive for me. It was ridiculously cheap. It was about $30, and he was getting thousands of people. And of course, he wasn't actually doing anything. It was all completely automated. So again, there's some quite interesting ideas out there, particularly on things like Fiverr, where you see how people have taken a very simple idea, a very simple product, and they just kind of automated it. And because it's just not worth our effort to invest loads of time in setting up that one little solution, they are really making hay whilst the sun shines. So the second one about getting income is about repurposing your business. I think we've heard quite a lot about this. Restaurants are doing deliveries. There's pubs that have become village shops. Dyson, of course, now making ventilators. And I think we mentioned previously about things like service accommodation, which has had its fair share of challenges with recent events, particularly in the rent-to-rent sector, where those units can be repurposed for things like hospitals or home workers and so on. So it's kind of this concept of just if you've got a business and you're not able to get the revenue from it, the income from it that you need kind of right now because of what's happening, is there a way in which you can either permanently or temporarily repurpose it and kind of get it earning income in a different way? One way, in fact, that you can try and do that is to actually have kind of virtual blue sky sessions with other business people, or even with friends and family. Many heads are generally better than one when it comes to this sort of thing. So getting other people's ideas in and just kind of really just letting your imagination run wild with the resources that we have, both in terms of like intellectually as ourselves and then in terms of the business. What is it that we could do that would be viable in this where we find ourselves at the moment? And with a bit of imagination, you never know, you might be able to find a solution that actually works for your business and sees it through to the other side. And the final, I promise, number 10 is about being positive. You'll find that crops up quite a bit.
Off yet. Keep going. Are you on number 10 yet?
I'm on number 10. Yeah, don't fret. So no matter how bad things get, always something to be thankful for. Glass always has to be half full. And if you find that you get depressed, then in terms of just feel like you're not getting that buzz, then find somebody to talk to about it. Somebody like a positivity partner, somebody that you can actually bounce off and actually try and pick each other up. And because ultimately you want to try and be the most positive person that you can, most positive person in your workplace, in terms of your business, in terms of your social network, in terms of your family. So just remembering that this is a time of great opportunity because of the challenges, not despite them. So there's definitely a lot of doom and gloom about, as Ritchie says, but now is the time to be positive. So there are just a few. I was going to do 50, but I kept it to 10, Rich. I don't know what you think. A few ideas on how you might protect your financial situation going forward. You're still awake?
He banged on a bit there, didn't he, guys? Hey. By the way, Ritesh had a follow-up. He said it's not my personal situation, but how can we help others as developers with this question about mortgage lockdown? I think it's difficult as developers because we're often developing something to come out the back end. I think if you're a landlord and you own properties and you can get a mortgage holiday, you might be able to pass that on. So I think you could work in that way. Hopefully you found that top 10 useful. We've got a couple of people actually saying, yes, they do love the ideas. Just give us a quick hands up if you found that useful. And if you do, then we'll do another top 10 or something else next time. No hands going up. That's good. Everyone says no. All right. Okay. So there are hands going up. Okay.
We want more Ritchie, apparently it says that. Somebody, Clapson. Oh no, that's the organizer.
Leanne says yes, I love some of the ideas, particularly with generating extra income. Okay, Leanne, you're his only fan. So well done. Good stuff. A few others come on board. Good to see Michael on here this evening. Neelam on, we haven't spoken to you some time. I trust you're well. Steve up in Wales, good to see you. So there's a bunch of people on tonight. Richard, hello, Richard. I didn't realize Richard from down in Chichester's on as well. So good stuff. Okay, so yeah, that's great, Ian. Okay, all right. You've got a couple of fans out there, Ian. That's all.
Great. That's and I'll call you later, Mum.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Ian, you said that you had to have a professional background. So how come you look like you're sat in a cupboard?
This is not. This is a professional cupboard.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Right, I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about retail to residential, because I said I talked about this on Saturday and a few people said, yes, please, can you have a little bit of a chat about it, about what could happen on extended PD rights. Now, bear in mind, this is just opinion. This is just my ideas of what may or may not happen. So currently, you have some PD rights to convert A1 shops to C3 under various uses. There are certain classes out there. You've got Class M, Class G, Class M and G give you these abilities to do things. Class G is about converting spaces above retail units into 2 flats. Class M is about converting the retail unit itself up to 150 square meters, etc., etc. So there are current PD rights in place. The conversion of flats over the top of retail is a permitted development. The conversion of the retail space up to 150 square meters is a prior notification. And there are lots of rules and bits and pieces around those. I don't profess to be a planning consultant, so get in touch with your planning consultant and understand what they're about. But really what I wanted to talk to you about this evening was maybe some new PD rights that might come in terms of regenerating the high street. Because I mean, the reality is the high street was going downhill anyway. It was going south, and this current situation will not help the high street in any way, shape or form. We're not allowed at the moment, but clearly if you're going to go up the high street, all the shutters are down. Will all those shutters come back up? I sincerely doubt it. I don't think all those shutters will come back up. A number of those businesses won't survive. And indeed, some of those big businesses, some of those big outfits, I think will struggle. We've had a few of the big players that have gone over the last few years. And I do think some of those will go over the coming months. Now, that's a shame. That's sad. A lot of people will lose jobs, but other things are going to come in. Something else will happen because, there is a need. And if there's a need, then people will create businesses that serve that need. But is it the businesses of old? No, probably not. Any recession is a natural cleansing process. It always is. It is that process of getting rid of the weak and actually, the strong survive. So, like it or not, that's what will naturally happen. Those businesses that got a bit of cash behind them that were doing well will go through this current time. Those that perhaps weren't really serving anyone, that people didn't really go there to any extent, the Marks and Spencers of this world have been trying to reinvent themselves over several months. They're much more now about food than they are clothes. Is that really the way they're going to go? Can they sustain that? That's probably the only thing that's keeping them afloat at the moment. What about the Debenhams of this world or the John Lewises? What happened to those? But let's bring this back down to the smaller units in the high streets. What about the WH Smiths? What about these individual other chains that are created across the country, little stationery shops or craft shops and all these things that suddenly grow into largest chains? I suspect a lot of those will disappear. So what's going to happen? Well, the local authorities will want to regenerate the high streets. The town centres, if they don't exist, if they're not alive, the town doesn't exist. The town dies. The city dies. The village dies if these things don't exist. So almost certainly the local authority and government will want to be doing something to inject some sort of energy into the towns, villages and city centres. How are they going to do that? Well, just look at the facts. This is why I'm just giving you an opinion, but I'm going to base it on the facts and you can form your own opinion on this. Is that the planning process, the planning officers were overwhelmed as it was. Down in the south, there's some nitrate issues that are kicking around, causing all sorts of problems. They are massively under-resourced. How do you think it's faring at the moment? Those planning officers are probably sat at home like the rest of you guys out there, not doing a huge amount, doing a bit online, but not really getting through that workload. That pile of paper is not really going down. It's only going to be getting bigger. So how can the government sort that out? Well, the whole purpose of permitted development rights was to kickstart the property industry, the development industry, in order to deliver the housing that this country needs. And that need has not gone away. And permitted development rights are not aimed at Barrett's and Persimmon and those sort of people. It's aimed at you. It's aimed at small developers just like you out there. That's what it's put into place for. If you're not a small developer yet, and I don't mean in height, I'm a small developer, Ian's a large developer. But in terms of the scale of the projects, bit of humour, got to inject a bit of humour in this evening. Everyone likes a bit of entertainment.
I wondered when it was coming. Is that it then? That was
one part. You never know, I might do some more a little bit later. So okay. The key thing is that, oh, hang on, I've made myself choke now. I'm just going to have a drink of water.
Keep going.
I just had a quick cough, but don't worry, it's okay. So they've got to do something, and it's about young, fresh development companies to get in and that are agile and flexible and can take advantage of PD rights. So isn't it obvious the high street needs regenerating? The government can extend the PD rights in some way to actually help us regenerate that high street, because we are the people that will probably do it. The bigger developers might be interested to go and take over a huge John Lewis store if it goes down, but are they interested in those smaller units throughout the high street? They're not. Who is? We are. It's people like us that will go and reinvigorate that high street. But in what way? How is it going to work? Well, Personal opinion again, it's all around co-living, co-working as far as I'm concerned. That's where the massive shift in this country will go, okay? There is not the need with online shopping and a lot of working. There are many, many companies that will now work in the way that we're working. You know, I mean, I bet you, you know, let me just ask for a little show of hands and let's just see. Give us a hand up if you've actually had an online networking meeting in the last few weeks. Give us a hand up. Quite a lot of people. Yes. So you know, it's quite successful. It works. Thank you for that, guys. So you know, it works. It's a new norm. You keep hearing this phrase. So you know, in terms of the high street, what can we do? This co-living, co-working thing's going to happen. Well, there's been quite a number of articles recently on it's sort of the British artisan business boom. Look that up, the British artisan business boom. There's been articles on this been written recently where up and coming business owners are out there, a bit like us in the development world, people like you out there that are doing it in other areas, clothing, household goods, food, design items. My daughter, some people who know us well, and there's a few on here tonight, will know that my daughter's an illustrator. She has her own illustration business. She's currently trying to get stuff out there. She's got her own website. She's like an Etsy type person. I mean, Etsy is huge. It's a huge, huge organization. And all of those people in time will perhaps be those people that might be interested in something in the high street. If I spoke to my daughter, and I mean, you go out and canvass this younger generation. Maybe some of you are some of the younger generation. A few of you I clearly know aren't, but that's okay. You know, but looking at another little joke that I threw in there, just that one's for free. That one's on me.
No, thanks. If you could continue to point them out when you do them, that would be helpful.
I'll just stick my hand up when there's a joke, so it's okay. Someone said, ha, ha. Okay.
No, they didn't. They only said ha, which I think probably sums it up quite nicely.
Do you think that's sarcastic from Richard? Richard, sarcasm's not needed. So coming back to it, if I actually spoke to my daughter and said, would you be interested in a little shop unit on the high street, maybe a 15 to 20 square meter type unit, but it maintains that shop front face. Part of Class G and Class M, the current permitted development rights, is all associated. If you're not sure, look them up and speak to your planning consultant. It's all to do with shop fronts. It's about image and retaining the character of the high street. So if you can retain the character of that high street with shop fronts, but actually it's quite a small, a la nail bar type arrangements, you know, people will take those units. They can come in under business rates, they're quite small. So we can maintain the shop front type image of the high street. And we can put some of these artisan businesses in there and they can live above the shop like they used to do in the old days, you know, like they do in a lot of countries abroad up in the mountains. And if I said to my sister, well, my sister, she wouldn't even be interested, but my daughter, if I said to my daughter, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but this is what I'm like. But I said to my daughter, if you're interested in this sort of unit with a live work, co-working, co-living, she would love it. She'd be absolutely up for it. She'd be downstairs designing, drawing, talking to customers, living up above the shop. And of course, then that frees up all that space behind at the ground floor and on the upper floors and potentially the second and third floors that exist in a lot of these towns for more living accommodation. You know, it's a completely different approach to the high street. But what will that do? It brings young, vibrant businesses back into the high street, a more personal touch, which is what we want. That's why we go to these type of businesses. That's why we deal with these. That's why Etsy as an organization has been so successful going forward. Just go on there if you haven't seen it. Go and have a look, because you need to get your opinion like my opinion. Don't take my word for this and suddenly go out and buy up the high street, but you should form your own opinion to see what you think is going to come. So I think if you look at the likes of Etsy, look what they're doing and think of these businesses, they can go out there, they can buy into these units, and all these then additional residential spaces will generate people back into the high street. It brings life back into the high street. And ultimately, we get to the point where the bars, the restaurants and those things, once they're open again, can actually now be more sustainable. My personal opinion is that's what I think is perhaps one of the more interesting routes going forward in terms of this upturn. And it's going to come. You know, this is why we're upbeat. We want to be upbeat. This is what these sessions are about. Whether it's a month, it's probably not. 2-3 months, it's going to come in time. Ian, you want to just jump in and make a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say another angle on that really is about commercial properties. So obviously one of the things we sort of mentioned it briefly last time, I think, which was that obviously the challenges we've got at the moment means that a lot of businesses are going to be past their sell by day and are going to unfortunately fold. But equally, a lot of people, a lot of businesses are seeing the advantage of home working. They've been forced to go down that route. So in the space of a very short period of time, they're now home working. And of course, what does that mean? If they embrace it, and it, rather than be a temporary solution, it ends up becoming a permanent solution, then the need that they used to have for perhaps some of these office buildings in town centres, city centres, is there's less need. That's the most expensive place to have one. Well, actually, if they can downsize, if they can have a much broader home working base of employees and just perhaps minimize their footprint in terms of the more expensive town centre sites, then guess what? From a developer's perspective, that is likely to see some properties become available as businesses relocate either out of town or to downsize to smaller premises. And of course, where there are commercial properties, there's PD rights, there's the opportunity to do slightly bigger type projects. So just wanted to kind of throw that in there as another angle on the opportunity that might be coming our way when it comes to town centres.
Yeah, and just Dave, good evening. Dave's on here. Dave said the best shops to chase after are Class M, which is true, which are on the secondary high streets. He's just spent the last few weeks on retail to resi. We'll be looking, he thinks there'll be lots of opportunities on the other side of the virus. I think you're absolutely right, Dave. But actually, I think it's beyond, it's not just those ones on the secondary high streets. That's what the current PD rights give you. That's out there. You've already got that. And definitely those opportunities will be there. My opinion is that the government may, and they may, I don't know, but it's a relatively easy thing for them to do, is to actually encourage us as younger developers to take those type of permitted development rights into the main high street, into the secondary, but the main high street. That's where I think the real wins could be. I don't know whether it's going to happen. It's not going to happen right this minute. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on with health, but I think it could be. Clive's asked a follow-up question. Evening, Clive. Clive says a lot of high street properties are often leasehold. Is this a problem? Well, no, not if you buy the lease. Okay, so what I'm talking about here is, as developers, you know, we really want to go in and we want to buy the freehold. We want to buy the whole property. That's really what we'll be looking at. And there's probably a lot of leasehold properties. If you go on to Land Registry, have a look, do a little bit of an exercise. It costs you a couple of quid unless you've got, you know, the sort of land tech type technology, but that still costs you to get the details. But go in and find out how long some of these owners have owned these freeholds in the high street. I think you might find quite a while. Some of them will be owned by organisations, pension funds, that sort of thing. But there'll also be other people that have held these for quite a while. And you know, what are they going to do? How are they going to reinvigorate this? Well, it might be that we as young developers and young development companies want the freehold. So unless we can buy the freehold, then maybe there's no deal. Well, you know, they're either going to sit there with nothing or they're going to look at the sort of things we could do. It could be that you could do something on a leasehold basis. Yes, potentially. This is about thinking out the box. Everything you do needs to be thinking out the box. Dave's added, will be interesting to see what businesses decide to have their staff work from at home, as it's been proven the current. Dave's saying here that, I think echoing what you said, Ian, that people will perhaps be tempted to start to work from home rather than in this position where they're at now. So hopefully that's just a bit of an overview of where I think things could be going. I think the high street, the retail to res could be an interesting area. Certainly it's one that I would be looking at, and I'd encourage you guys to have a look at it, monitor it, see what the government are doing, keep close to your planning consultants and see where that's at. Okay, that's quite useful. Now, is anyone else, just while we're on, I'm just going to lower all the hands. Has anyone got a question that they want to raise specifically tonight? If you've got your mic on, that'd be good. Just stick your hand up if you've got your mic on and there's a question you might want to ask, and we'll see if we can answer it. Anyone shy? Anyone willing to come forward? Shy lot tonight.
Terrible.
Yeah,
we've obviously answered all their questions.
Say again.
We've obviously answered all their questions. That's good.
Possibly so. Possibly so. Jacqueline's on. Jacqueline, have you got your mic on? Let's have a look. Let's see. Jacqueline, good evening. Jacqueline, just put your microphone on at your end if you've got it on. Jacqueline, good evening. Jacqueline wants to ask a question, but I'm not entirely sure that Jacqueline's mic is switched on. I've switched it on at our end. So Jacqueline, are you switched on?
Can I just just refer back to one of my points. I think it's point number 6, wasn't it, about mastering the technology, Rich, in my section. I'll give you the transcript.
Well, the technology's on.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Ah,
Wow.
Jacqueline, good evening. How are you?
Yes, good, thank you. How are you guys?
Yeah, all good. Just
Very
a quick hands up. Can everyone else hear Jacqueline, please? Put a hand up if you can. Yes, technology's working. Jacqueline, you are live to the nation. What is your question for us? But don't make it too difficult.
I did email it, but I'm not sure whether you've actually seen it. So it was regarding, I had a note down that said that the permitted development rights were going to be in until the 1st of October 2020. Do you see that? Have you got any update on that? Or do you have any feeling as to what will happen with that?
Okay, Jacqueline, so this is about industrial conversions, isn't it? Yeah? You're asking about the industrial conversion permitted development rights from conversion from light industrial class B1C into residential. Will it be extended beyond the end of September? I don't know. I get asked this several times a week. I look forward to the day that I have a definitive answer, but I don't have one this evening. What I can say is I constantly ask the planning consultants what's going on. They don't know either. If I'm a betting man, and I'm not particularly a betting man, but I would be looking to think that it could be extended. It's a Jacqueline, it's a very easy one for the government to extend. We know in the recent budget, you know, they were talking about permitted development rights. They want, even before the virus came and hit us, they wanted to encourage this industry to pick up and deliver the housing that this country needs. So the industrial conversion PD right has not been abused. There were perhaps arguments that the office conversion had been abused, and there was a lot of criticism of that, but that remained permanent. So I just look at it from facts, and I let you guys form your own opinion. But my idea would be that, you know, it's not been abused. There are still a lot of light industrial buildings out there. Thankfully, not many people know how to convert them. I mean, we'll keep it a secret between us lot this evening and those that's read our book that's published out there internationally. But apart from that, no one really knows how to convert these buildings. And so I think there is some great opportunities there. And I'm guessing, Jacqueline, they will extend it, but I really don't know. As soon as we know, we'll put something out on one of these sessions. Yeah. Having said that, what I would say is that the opportunity to go in and convert these type of buildings is still there, albeit very strongly for your first project. We'd have to say, don't go down a full planning route, only do something with permitted development.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. I shall now mute you. Jacqueline is now muted. Anyone else want to raise a quick question this evening? Anyone else got a quick question they want to bring in? See, Jacqueline was brave. So shy, you lot, so shy. Okay, let me ask, just answer another question. Dave is on. Dave, you asked a question just now regards other businesses. You had a question, Dave, which we missed on Saturday, and I know you've joined us a little bit later this evening, so I wanted to make sure we pick that one up for you. I think we can just fit that one in this evening. And your question on Saturday, Dave had a question. It said, how would you position with vendors where a sale is already agreed in negotiating a price reduction due to the current economic situation? So I think what Dave's looking at there is that he's probably got a sale agreed, you're probably not exchanged. What do you do? Well, my view at the moment is hold, stay where you are, watch the market, and potentially renegotiate. Okay, because you may have to. You know, okay, you're not the sort of person one would suspect that's going to go out and gazump people. That's not your style. But the world's changed. The market's changed. At the moment, I don't know what the scheme is, but this can apply to anyone. And I've had a couple of conversations exactly this week and just this last sort of couple of days on this same subject. Is that, you know, you at the moment don't know whether your deal analysis that you've done, assuming you've got a deal analysis, that you've stacked up the end result, the end sale values. We don't know whether those end sale values are going to be there or not there. We don't know that at the moment. What if this virus thing locks us down till Christmas? Well, we're going to go stir crazy and probably all a little bit mad. But apart from that, we don't know what that's going to do to our sale values. What if actually we come out of this this current downturn, recession, whatever it's going to be, in 6 months? Maybe you can start to predict depending on what your project is. But what I would be doing, Dave, is that right now, I would not be exchanging, I would not be completing on any deal at all. I'd have a very honest discussion with that vendor and say, look, you know where we're at. I can't proceed at this minute. I very much want to. I love the building. I love the development. It's something I want to do. I just need to hold where I'm at the moment. I'm going to review the situation as I go forward. Hopefully, we can still carry on with the same deal. You don't want to make a move at the moment. You don't want to start saying, I'm going to chip you on the price or anything like that, because they might pull now and get back out into the market. Try and hold your position. It's like a game of cards. All business is a game of cards. Hold those cards, Dave, close to your chest at the moment. Make the vendor still believe that, yeah, you're probably going to go through with it, but you just want to make sure you know where everything's at. At the end of the day, you know, if they're motivated and without capitalizing on someone else's pain, which, you know, we strongly don't suggest anyone does that at any time, you know, if you actually just hold that position, if ultimately that vendor is really motivated, then perhaps they're going to become more motivated over the coming weeks, and your sale values are likely to be chipped or a little bit more uncertain, you're going to have to chip that price. And, you know, that might just still go through at that price because that vendor thinks, well, I can put it back on the market. Am I going to find, assuming this is one of your projects, Dave, am I going to find another Dave to turn up and buy this at this price? Probably not. Assuming you've already negotiated and moved to a point of accepting an offer, then that's still a whole new process for someone to go out there and do. So even in normal situations, if you go so far down the line and you just want to hold off for a few weeks because you're just trying to delay things, most vendors won't normally go back on the market and go back out there. In the current situation, I don't think they will at all. So I couldn't suggest you've got to negotiate it down, and even to what percentage. I couldn't say you're going to buy it where it is. All I would do, Dave, is hold your position, hold your cards close to your chest, and let's just ride it a few more weeks and see where it goes. Hopefully that answers your question. We are at just 1:45. We said we would keep this to 45 minutes. I see Julian's popped another question in. Julian, I've not read that question, but what we will do, we'll have a look at that and we'll bring that on for another session. Dave says, great advice, chaps. Thank you so much. No problem at all. Hopefully you found that useful. Can you give us a quick wave if you found tonight's session useful, a little bit inspirational, a little bit upbeat? No, not a single wave. All hands up. Great stuff. Great stuff. Look, hopefully you found that useful. We're going to be doing another session. When's our next session, Ian?
Our next session is Saturday, 10 a.m. bright and breezy, when I'm working on another top 10 where I'm actually going to save you money, which could be quite exciting. Could save you actually quite a lot of money.
So if you're really inspired and you want to get up on a Saturday morning and listen to Ian's top 10, that's entirely up to you. It's entirely up to you. But I'll bring you some other content as well. But please, if you've got any questions, pop them in or bring them to the session on the Saturday. We love them as we go. If anyone's brave enough to come on, then please come on, ask us a question. It does make it more interactive for everyone else. Jacqueline, thank you for your question tonight. That is really, really useful. Put a few comments in, people saying, is it going to be uploaded? Ian, do you just want to tell people what the process is from here on with the
It's going to be uploaded, yeah. So we'll be putting it on our YouTube channel and we'll also be putting it on our website. So if you're ever lost for the link that takes you to register for the next one, then please just go to propertyCEO/webinars. And then you'll see the red button to register, and then below that we'll be putting all of the previous episodes. So if you fancy a rerun, and of course in the fullness of time we'll be releasing it as a box set on Fox.
So yeah, so I know there's some new people on. I mean, I wish I could say hello to everyone, but we've got quite a lot of people on, which is terrific. I know that some of you I don't recognize some of the names, weren't on Saturday. We did do a run on Saturday. You know, fairly random sort of upbeat stuff. Another one of Ian's top 10s. So you could skip over that, but please go back and have a listen to Saturday's session. We just say trying to inject a bit of positivity. So hopefully it's all good. Thank you. Great stuff. Good stuff, guys. Good. Terrific. Thank you for all your kind messages. Thumbs up. Simon, thank you for a thumbs up. That I think is a thumbs up. Yeah, it's a thumb. That's okay. Thank you, Simon, for that. Look at that. Yeah, Michael, Grazia. Michael says Grazia. Is that? I think that might be Italian, or perhaps half Italian. If anyone knows who Michael is,
Not the way
Simon
you
says thank you. Thanks, guys. Alan, no problem, Alan. Appreciate it. Hope you are well and your family are well. Jess, thank you. Cheers, boys. Thank you. Lots of thank yous coming in. So, guys, thank you for that. As long as you like this and you find this useful, we'll keep coming and doing this and keeping you upbeat. Lots of thank yous coming in. They're constantly coming in. Really appreciate that. It makes a difference to us if we can do this and we help you. If there's no one out there, it gets a bit boring. So thank you very much. So keep safe, keep positive, and most importantly, be helpful. Help someone else as we're trying to help you guys. It'll all come back in a payback in the end. So we'll see you next time. We'll see you on Saturday. Other than that, have a good few days for the rest of this week. See you soon.
Bye.